So I wanted to talk a little bit about ways of improving the system, just some considerations at this point. One big one, and this is not my idea, it's put together by three brilliant people, and it's great, gaining a lot of traction. But it excites me as an economist because it seems to address a lot of these areas, and it doesn't force anyone to do anything they don't want to do. Right there, that gets excited, right? So remember the carrot and stick approach, carrot and stick. So the concept of a universal fund, and I want to stress, if any of you want more information on this, you can't Google it easily because there's a whole bunch of other universal funds out there. More than happy to send it to you for your own, preview to go deeper, or reach out to me, and I'm, like I said, I'll connect with you and get you the information. The concept of a universal fund is, think of a mutual fund. Think of a fund where investors are not investing with money, but you are an investor just by the prelude of the fact you are a U.S. citizen over 18 years or a U.S. permanent resident over 18 years old. This fund is created by corporations and individuals making charitable donations to it. And this may sound, kind of fantastic. Well, how are they going to raise all this money? Is this income fund, universal income fund? Over $410 billion were contributed to charities last year by individuals, foundations, and corporations. 1-year-old data. So it's not that hard to be able to raise money. The government could also add money as well. There'll be other sources, and there could be a lot of incentive. That's the carrot. This fund also can take stock. Okay, so stock can be donated directly, which would be an additional tax benefit for any of you that are familiar with stock donations. So appreciate stock donations. This fund is created by donations going into it. The government does not have to fund it, and nobody's forced to put money into it. Every U.S. citizen and permanent resident over the age of 18 can register to be part of this fund. You have no other requirements. There's no money required. There's nothing more than just yourself. This fund will pay income out to all of the participants every year. How much income will depend on the size of the fund. Okay. In the beginning, you put $1 trillion in there, and the fund yields, rough dividends of the S&P 2%. It's going to be like 300 if everybody eligible, the 220 million that are eligible do it, like $300 a year. So it's not very exciting. But as time grows, more money would be contributed, right? In addition, many people won't register for it because they don't really need or see the benefit. Now, why is this important? Not necessarily that the fund can easily grow to the size of the contributions over time. What it is that it gives people, individuals, who have never had access to the capital markets, have never had access to being a contributor, a voter, have a say in how corporations are run. So I'm going to set that aside. So it is a way of all Americans to participate in a fund. The fund is not managed the way funds traditionally are, so it's not going to be a big money maker for the people that are doing it. I'm going to set aside a lot of the details because I want to get into how this really changes everything with capitalism. So companies now are going to be held to different standards. So now the way it is the vast majority of the investors don't really have a say-so in voting. So if there's a company out there, and let's say it's an S&P 500 company, and they're not doing very good things, socially, environmentally, whatever the issue is, there's a little say that the investors actually have, because the majority of shares are held by generally index funds held by very, very large corporations. Some of these large corporations are very fee sensitive because they market themselves on being very cheap. They have no interest in rocking the boat, doing any proxy voting, any change to the company. Okay, so you as a shareholder in XYZ S&P 500 index fund are just simply invested in this company. But the voting rights are by and large held by these large mutual fund or large investment companies, and they don't really get involved in the way that companies are managed. So if you want to see board diversity, if you want to see better environmental protections, if you want to see more equal pay throughout the workforce, if you want to see these changes, you don't have a lot of control. Hence, companies are not really necessarily motivated to change. And yes, there are funds, and yes, there are ways to invest. I build a lot of these for my clients, so I'm really familiar with the ways of doing that as individual investor. But most investors don't have the access and don't have the knowledge. So with the lack of control over the companies aren't really beholden to make changes, right? So this way, within this fund, as these companies are held within this fund through donations over time, what happens is individuals have a lot more say. and how companies are managed, how things are done. So if there's a push towards climate change, you would have the ability to be able to vote. And again, I'm being very simplistic. I know this sounds very optimistic, but there's a lot of technicalities to it that I would get into when there's more time. People just feeling like they have more control and power and say in the way things are done. If you think of it now, corporate power, large corporations, let's say publicly traded large corporations, corporate power is immense. Corporate power is to the point that we have major companies that are buying newspapers, that are buying media, that are buying political influence. Okay, there's a tremendous amount of power in corporations. And so what happens is that when you have that level of power and influence over the media, which captures the social aspect, over government, which now captures rulemaking, lawmaking, et cetera, then you have a lot more power than any individual has. And in a sense, it's even more power than the elected politicians have. It makes it very difficult for change to happen. So when you have that type of power, what do you do? And I'm saying, what do you do? These types of corporations, they want to maintain that power. They will sponsor the campaigns of the people that will let them continue doing things the way they do, not the campaigns of people that are going to look for more change. So that further separates individuals from the direction of the country and also their opportunity. And again, I'm not going to go too much into the universal fund because this was conceptually how it can be done. Participation, the more people feel they participate, the more involved they become, the better the outcome. Why is that? Intention. Intention is very, very powerful, very powerful. If you can align your decision making with your personal intentions, okay, with that for the good of society, which of course can be seen differently by different people, but the whole thing is voluntary, great change can be made.